First contact gone wrong. The crystalline displays aboard the Celestial Seeker pulsed with a gentle azure glow as Commander Vextal reviewed the latest survey data. The Archean science vessel had been mapping the outer reaches of the spiral arm for the past 3 cycles, cataloging stellar phenomena and searching for signs of new civilizations. Their mission was peaceful. The Archean collective had always prioritized knowledge over conquest. Commander, Senior Analyst Zixra called from her station, her iridescent scales shifting from their usual calm blue to an alert orange. Unknown vessel detected at bearing 343.7. Energy signature. Doesn't match anything in our database. Vextal glided across the bridge on his gravitational stabilizers, his 4 eyes focusing on the main display. The ship was unlike anything he'd seen before. Its design was angular and utilitarian, with none of the flowing organic shapes preferred by known spacefaring races. Most striking was its power signature. It seemed to be deliberately masked, yet hints of immense energy potential leaked through. Analysis, he queried, his inner eyelids flickering with interest. Hull composition is primarily titanium alloy with unknown reinforcement materials. Multiple weapon ports detected, though currently sealed. Their drive signature suggests capabilities far beyond their apparent tech level. Zixra's scales rippled with confusion. Sir, they appear to be using controlled nuclear fusion for propulsion. A collective murmur of disbelief rippled through the bridge crew. Nuclear fusion was considered incredibly primitive and dangerous. No known race would risk such an unstable power source. Yet this ship was clearly advanced in many other ways. Standard first contact protocols, Vextal ordered. Broadcast peace signals on all frequencies and prepare cultural exchange packages. The Celestial Seeker's communications array hummed to life, transmitting the carefully crafted mathematical sequences that had served as universal greeting cards for centuries. They waited in tense silence for a response. Instead of the expected return signal, the unknown vessel's weapon ports suddenly snapped open. A harsh voice cut through their communication system, speaking in an unfamiliar language that their translators struggled to decode. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Vigilant. You have entered restricted human space and initiated active scans of a military vessel. Stand down immediately, or we will respond with force. Humans. The word sent a chill through Vextal's spine. There had been rumors, whispers of a newly spacefaring race that had somehow survived multiple attempts at conquest by the feared Drachnid Empire. The stories claimed these humans had not only fought off the Drachnids, but had turned their own weapons against them. Transmitting apologies and explaining our peaceful intent, the communications officer reported, her scales now a worried purple, adding cultural context data too. A bright energy beam lanced past their bow, missing by mere meters. The human ship's targeting systems were incredibly precise. That had been a warning shot designed to demonstrate capability without causing damage. Fascinating, Zixra muttered, still taking readings. Their weapon technology is relatively primitive, but their targeting systems are beyond anything I've seen. They're compensating for technical limitations with extreme precision. All stations, maintain calm, Vextal ordered as warning signals flashed across his displays. Power up defensive systems, but do not target weapons. We need to convince them we're not a threat. The human ship was moving now, executing a series of maneuvers that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size. It was positioning itself to disable rather than destroy. Another calculated show of force. Sir, Zixra's voice carried an edge of fear. I'm detecting quantum fluctuations in their drive system. They're preparing for some kind of faster-than-light jump. The energy readings. They're using localized space-time distortion. That was impossible. The power requirements for such technology should have been far beyond what their primitive fusion drives could provide. Unless they're not primitive at all, Vextal realized. They're deliberately using older technology as camouflage. Everything about their ship is designed to make others underestimate them. Before he could act on this revelation, Space itself seemed to twist around the human vessel. In a flash of blue-shifted light, it vanished, only to reappear moments later directly above them, weapons charged and ready. Final warning. Captain Chen's voice came through again, now translated properly. Power down your scanning systems and prepare to be boarded for inspection, or we will be forced to assume hostile intent. Vextal's scales shifted to the deep green of decision. They had come seeking new civilizations, and they had certainly found one. Now they just had to survive the encounter long enough to learn from it. "This is Commander Vextal of the Arxian science vessel Celestial Seeker," he transmitted. "We accept your terms and will power down all active systems. Please understand that our scans were part of standard exploration protocols. We mean no harm." There was a long pause before the human captain responded. When she did, her tone had shifted slightly. "Arxian, your species was reported to be extinct after the Drachnid invasion of your home system. We survived. We adapted. We rebuilt," Vextal replied simply. "Much like humans did, according to the stories we've heard." Another pause. The weapon ports remained open, but the charging signature of their main guns powered down slightly. "Prepare for boarding," Captain Chen commanded. "Any attempt to power up weapons or scanning systems will be met with immediate response. We will determine if you're telling the truth about your peaceful intentions." As his crew began shutdown procedures, Vextal couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and fascination. Humans were clearly far more complex than anyone had realized. They combined primitive and advanced technology in unexpected ways, used precision instead of raw power, and somehow managed to be both intimidating and intriguing. This first contact may not have gone as planned, but it might just lead to something far more interesting than a standard cultural exchange. Assuming, of course, they could convince these humans that not every unknown ship was a potential threat. The boarding shuttle was approaching now, its design as utilitarian as its mothership. Vextal prepared to meet these mysterious humans face to face, knowing that the next few hours would determine not just their own fate, but potentially the future relationship between their species. One thing was already clear. The galaxy's rumors about humanity had only scratched the surface of what these beings were truly capable of. The chase through the nebula. The boarding party from the UES Vigilant moved through the Celestial Seeker's corridors with practiced efficiency. Their powered armor made them seem even more imposing to the Arxian crew, servos whirring quietly with each precise movement. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez led the team, her helmet's sensors constantly scanning for any signs of deception or hidden threats. What they found instead was a ship dedicated purely to scientific research. Every compartment contained sophisticated scanning equipment, biological research stations, or astronomical observation devices. The weapon systems were minimal, barely enough for asteroid defense. "Captain," Maya reported through her secure channel, "everything matches their story. This is definitely a research vessel. Their technology is interesting. Some of it's way beyond anything we've seen before." In the Celestial Seeker's main laboratory, Commander Vextal waited patiently as the human security team examined their research data. His scales had settled into a cautious shade of blue-green, reflecting his mixed emotions about the situation. Captain Chen's voice came through both ships' communication systems. "Commander Vextal, we're detecting multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the edge of the sector. Energy signatures match known raider vessels." Vextal's scales shifted to alarm orange. "Raiders? In this sector? But this is supposed to be restricted space." "It is," Chen replied grimly. "They're using the restriction to hide their operations. Lieutenant Rodriguez, get your team back here. Commander Vextal, I suggest you prepare for combat or retreat. These raiders don't leave witnesses." Before either ship could act, space rippled as 5 vessels emerged from FTL. Their designs were a patchwork of stolen technology, but their weapons were already charging. "Curious," Zixra noted from her science station, "their energy signatures contain elements of both human and Arxian technology. They've been studying both our species. The raider ships moved to surround them, their formation suggesting experience in coordinated attacks. A harsh transmission cut through all frequencies. Well, a human warship and an Arxian science vessel. Today's our lucky day. Your technology will fetch a fine price on the black market. After we've extracted everything you know about your respective species. Captain Chen's response was immediate and cold. Commander Vextal, I assume your people would prefer not to be captured by pirates. Correct, Vextal replied, watching as his crew efficiently powered up their minimal defensive systems. Though our combat capabilities are limited. But your sensors and shields are superior to ours, Chen noted. If we work together. The raiders opened fire before she could finish, their shots surprisingly well coordinated. The Celestial Seeker's advanced shields flickered under the assault, while the Vigilant's more conventional defenses absorbed the impacts through sheer reinforced plating. The Carina Nebula, Vextal suggested suddenly. It's less than 2 light minutes away. The radiation and gravitational distortions would give us an advantage, Chen finished. Your sensors can navigate it better than theirs, and our targeting systems can compensate for the interference. Commander, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. Both ships accelerated toward the massive cloud of gas and stellar debris, the raiders in close pursuit. The nebula loomed before them, its swirling colors concealing dangerous radiation storms and unpredictable gravitational eddies. Transmitting our sensor data to your ship, Vextal announced as they entered the nebula's outer layers. Our gravitational mapping should help you avoid the worst distortions. The Vigilant's response was impressive. Using the Arxian sensor data, the human ship wove through the nebula's hazards with incredible precision. Their pursuers, lacking access to such detailed information, were forced to proceed more cautiously. Commander, Zixra called out, her scales now a bright yellow of excitement. The humans are using our gravitational data in ways we never considered. They're actually using the nebula's distortions to enhance their weapon ranges. Indeed, the Vigilant had turned to fire on their pursuers, their shots curving through the nebula's gravitational fields to strike from unexpected angles. 2 raider ships took heavy damage before they realized what was happening. But the raiders weren't done yet. Their leader's voice came through again. Clever trick, using the nebula. But did you really think we wouldn't have a few surprises of our own? The remaining raider ships suddenly released clouds of autonomous combat drones. The small machines were better suited to navigating the nebula's hazards, and they quickly swarmed toward both ships. Fascinating design, Zixra commented, still taking readings even as warning signals blared. They've adapted Arxian drone technology, but added human-style targeting systems. Less analysis, more solutions. Chen's voice cut in. Commander Vextal, can your shields be modified to emit a focused electromagnetic pulse? Our weapons can hit anything you can highlight for us. Vextal's scales shifted to the deep purple of concentration. Untested theory becoming practical application. How very human. Zixra, reconfigure the shield emitters. Captain Chen, prepare for targeting data. The next few minutes demonstrated why both species had survived against overwhelming odds. The Celestial Seeker's modified shields sent out pulses of electromagnetic energy, illuminating the swarms of drones through the nebula's haze. The Vigilant's weapons followed milliseconds later, striking with impossible accuracy through the electromagnetic chaos. But the raiders had one more card to play. Their largest ship began emitting a strange energy signature that made both human and Arxian sensors scream warnings. They're trying to trigger a localized stellar phenomenon, Zixra reported, her scales now white with fear. The nebula's particle density in this region. They're going to create a microscopic supernova. Clear the blast radius, Chen ordered. We'll have to come back for them once. Wait, Vextal interrupted. An idea forming. Captain, your ship's fusion drive, could it safely contain a small-scale stellar explosion? There was a pause before Chen replied, and Vextal could almost hear the human smile in her voice. Safely? No, but we could definitely contain it. What are you thinking, Commander? Your ship has the raw power. Ours has the precision. Together, Vextal's scales shifted to brilliant gold, the color of inspiration. Together, we can turn their weapon against them. Chen finished. Start transmitting containment calculations. This is going to be interesting. As the Raiders' weapon reached critical levels, they were about to learn an important lesson. Never try to outfight humans, and never try to outsmart Arxians. But most importantly, never give two supposedly incompatible species a reason to work together. The nebula was about to witness something entirely new, human audacity combined with Arxian precision, creating a maneuver that would be studied by both species for generations to come. Common enemy. The Carina Nebula blazed with unnatural light as the Raiders' weapon reached critical mass. The combined crews of the UES Vigilant and Celestial Seeker watched their displays with tense anticipation as their desperate plan unfolded. Energy containment fields at maximum. Zixra reported, her scales flickering between concentration purple and anxiety white, transmitting final calibrations to the Vigilant's drive system. Captain Chen's voice came through clear despite the growing interference. Containment fields integrated with fusion drive. Ready on your mark, Commander. Vextal's four eyes focused on the swirling energies before them. The Raiders had intended to trigger a microscopic supernova, using the nebula's unique properties to create a devastating weapon. Instead, their targets had turned the tables in a way none of them could have predicted. Now, Vextal commanded. The Vigilant's fusion drive flared to life, its carefully controlled nuclear reactions reaching out to grab the growing stellar phenomenon. The Celestial Seeker's more advanced containment fields guided the energy, shaping it like a potter molding clay. Together, they created something between a solar flare and a controlled fusion reaction. The Raiders realized their mistake too late. Their weapon's energy was drawn into the makeshift containment system, compressed, and then redirected back at them in a focused beam of stellar fire. Two of their ships vanished instantly in the conflagration. The others suffered severe damage as the artificial star flame washed over their shields. But something went wrong. The energy levels exceeded even their combined calculations. Containment failing, Maya reported from the Vigilant. The reactions becoming self-sustaining. Impossible, Zixra muttered, her scales now deep red with concern. Unless, Captain Chen, are you detecting quantum fluctuations in the nebula's background radiation? Confirmed, Chen replied tensely. The Raiders' weapon interacted with something that was already here, something big. The nebula's gases parted like a curtain, revealing what the combined sensors of both ships had failed to detect earlier. A massive structure, ancient and alien, its surface now glowing with awakened energy. By the first stars, Vextal breathed. A predecessor artifact. The remaining Raider ships tried to flee, but the energy wave from the ancient structure caught them first. Instead of destroying them, it seemed to transform them. Their hulls twisted and reformed, taking on organic patterns that neither human nor Arxian technology could fully analyze. All ships, full retreat, Chen ordered. We need to warn. A transmission cut through all frequencies, but it wasn't from the Raiders. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, speaking in frequencies that made both organic and mechanical sensors resonate. Criteria emanate. Species interaction piroto kivola einheit. He beginning essay assessment. The predecessor artifact pulsed with impossible colors. Both the Vigilant and Celestial Seeker found themselves caught in some kind of quantum tractor beam, drawing them closer to the massive structure. Their technology was supposed to be dead, Zixra said, frantically analyzing the readings. The predecessors vanished millions of years ago. Looks pretty active to me, Chen responded dryly. Commander Vextal, any insights? Your people has studied the predecessors longer than we have. Only theories, Vextal replied, watching as the transformed Raider ships were also drawn toward the artifact. The predecessors were said to test emerging species, judging their potential for something. No one ever discovered what. The artifact's surface shifted like liquid metal, opening vast doorways that led into its interior. The quantum beam gave them no choice but to enter, guiding both ships through crystalline corridors that seemed to extend forever. Multiple power signatures activating, Maya reported. The whole structure is waking up. And sir, the Raiders' ships. Their crews are still alive, but their neural patterns are being altered somehow. Inside the Celestial Seeker's bridge, Vextol made a decision. Captain Chen, I suggest we combine our ship's data networks. If we're being tested, we should face it together. Agreed, Chen replied without hesitation. Lieutenant Rodriguez, initiate quantum encryption protocols and establish a direct link with the Celestial Seeker. Let's show these predecessors what happens when humans and Arxens work together. The artifact's voice came again. Initiating primary trial. Species will be GDGDDO in cooperation, innovation, and ETHAKL RESPONSC to threat. The transformed Raider ships suddenly came to life, their organic mechanical hybrid forms moving with impossible grace. But they weren't attacking. They were running from something. Something massive was moving in the depths of the artifact. Well, Chen said, and Vextol could hear the grim smile in her voice, we wanted to study new life forms. Looks like we're about to get our chance. As both crews prepared for whatever tests the predecessors had prepared, Vextol realized something profound. Humans and Arxens had developed along completely different paths, one embracing precision and careful advancement, the other charging forward with controlled chaos and innovative leaps. Apart, they each had weaknesses. Together, they complemented each other perfectly. Captain, he said, I believe I understand why we're being tested together. The predecessors aren't judging our species separately. They're judging how well we work together, Chen finished. Which means these trials are going to require both human audacity and Arxen precision. Vextol confirmed. Exactly the combination that let us survive the Raiders' weapon. The massive shape in the depths came closer, its form defying conventional physics. The transformed Raiders fled before it, their new organic technologies unable to match its power. All crews, Chen broadcast to both ships, prepare for joint operations. Today we make history, or we become history. Either way, we do it together. As the creature emerged from the darkness, both human and Arxen crews readied themselves for the trial of their lives. The predecessors wanted to test their ability to cooperate. They were about to get far more than they expected. The true question was, what would happen if they passed the test? And more importantly, what would happen if they failed? The trials of unity. The creature that emerged from the depths of the predecessor artifact defied conventional understanding. It shifted between states of matter like water-changing forms, its massive body simultaneously solid, liquid, and energy. The transformed Raider ships scattered before it, their hybrid technologies inadequate against this ancient force. Analysis. Captain Chen demanded, her voice steadied despite the impossible sight before them. It's beautiful, Zixra breathed, her scales shimmering with scientific excitement. The entity exists in multiple quantum states simultaneously. It's using the uncertainty principle on a macro scale. Less appreciation, more application, Chen replied. Can we fight it? Fight it? We can barely measure it, Vextol said. But perhaps that's not what we're meant to do. Notice how it's hurting the Raiders, not destroying them. The quantum entity moved with purpose, driving the transformed Raiders toward a specific section of the artifact. The massive chamber's walls rippled with strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Commander, Maya called from her position on the Vigilant. The Raiders' neural patterns are stabilizing. Whatever the entity did to them, they're becoming something new, something coherent. The predecessor voice echoed through both ships. Trial 1. Resolution of QONFLICTT through even DRSTanding. Demonstrate ca passive itue for transformation of HFY. They want us to help the raiders, Vextol realized. Not fight them, but understand what they're becoming. Chen's response was thoughtful. The raiders attacked us because they saw different species as resources to be exploited. Now they're being forcibly evolved. Question is, into what? The celestial seeker sensors, combined with the vigilance processing power, began to make sense of the transformation. The raiders weren't just changing physically. Their very consciousness was being altered, forced to experience existence from multiple perspectives simultaneously. They're being made to understand, Zixra reported, her scales now a deep blue of comprehension. The predecessors are showing them what it means to be everything. Every species, every perspective, all at once. That's not evolution, Chen said grimly. That's torture. No mind is meant to handle that kind of input. Vexel's scales shifted to decision green. Then we need to help them focus it. Captain, if we combine your ship's communication arrays with our quantum filters, we could help them process the information gradually. Chen finished. Give them a chance to adapt rather than being overwhelmed. But we'll have to get close. The quantum entity seemed to watch with interest as both ships moved toward the transformed raiders. The celestial seeker extended its sensor arrays, while the vigilant reconfigured its communication systems, creating a hybrid network that could interface with the raiders' new organic mechanical forms. Unexpected approach, the predecessor voice noted. Proceeding to observe. Working together, the human and Archean crews created a buffer zone around the raiders' consciousness, allowing them to experience the multiple perspectives in controlled bursts rather than an overwhelming flood. Slowly, the transformed ships began to stabilize. It's working, Maya reported. Their neural patterns are settling into a new configuration. They're achieving balance between states. A raider captain's voice came through, but it was changed, layered with understanding that hadn't been there before. We see now. So much waste, so much potential lost because we couldn't understand each other. Trial 1 CMPLE did, the predecessor voice announced. Unexpected solution. HCJIEVD through cooperation. Proceeding to Trial 2. The quantum entity shifted, its form coalescing into something more solid. The chamber around them transformed, creating what appeared to be a massive simulation space. Stars and planets appeared around them, forming a miniature galaxy. Scenario engaged. Civilization faces extinction, levial threat. Multiple species must coordinate responsibly. Time compression in ABLED. The simulated galaxy came alive with activity. Thousands of worlds representing dozens of species appeared, all facing a threat that emerged from the galaxy's core, a massive wave of energy that consumed everything in its path. The Great Wave, Vextol whispered. It's not just a legend. The predecessors faced this before they vanished, and now they want to see how we'd handle it, Chen added. Not just humans and Archeans, but all species working together. The transformed raiders moved into position alongside them, their new consciousness making them perfect intermediaries between different species' perspectives. Time compression engaged, Zixra reported. We'll experience years of simulation time in hours. Every decision we make, every strategy we attempt, will play out in accelerated time. Then we better make those decisions count, Chen said. Commander Vextol, let's show these predecessors what happens when the galaxy really works together. As the simulation began in earnest, both crews realized this was more than just a test. The predecessors weren't just judging their ability to cooperate, they were preparing them for something that might require every species in the galaxy to stand together. The transformed raiders, now able to bridge perspectives between different species, took on the role of coordinators. The Vigilant's tactical innovations combined with the Celestial Seeker's scientific insights creating strategies that would have been impossible for either species alone. But as they worked to save the simulated galaxy, a deeper question emerged. Was this really just a simulation? Or were the predecessors showing them a glimpse of a very real future they would have to face? The answer, they suspected, would come all too soon in Trial 3. For now, they had a galaxy to save, even if it was just a simulation, because something told them that their performance here would determine far more than just whether they passed some ancient species test. The fate of the real galaxy might very well depend on what they learned in these trials. And as both humans and Arctians were beginning to understand, the predecessors hadn't chosen them by accident. They had been watching, waiting for species that could work together despite their differences. Now it was time to prove they had made the right choice. Legacy of the Stars. The simulated galaxy blazed with the light of 1 billion dying stars as the Great Wave approached its final targets. After experiencing the equivalent of 5 years in mere hours, the combined crews of the Vigilant and Celestial Seeker had learned harsh lessons about cooperation and sacrifice. Final simulation cycle complete, Zixra announced, her scales a deep purple of exhaustion. Survival rate across all species, 63%. Previous attempts by other species never exceeded 40%. Captain Chen's voice was tired but determined. Because they tried to save their own kinds first. We proved that working together gives everyone a better chance. The transformed raiders had been crucial to their success, their new multi-perspective consciousness allowing them to coordinate between different species evacuation efforts and defense strategies. What had started as a simulation of survival had become a lesson in galactic unity. Trial 2 did, the predecessor voice announced. Species demonstrate exceptlcapacity or adaptation and cooperative. Here blem Sylvian. Proceeding to a final trial. The simulation faded, returning them to the vast chamber within the artifact. The quantum entity that had shepherded them through the trials shifted again, splitting into multiple smaller forms that surrounded both ships. Final trial begins. See shoes. Advancement or preservation. Before either crew could question this cryptic statement, the chamber filled with new holograms. But these weren't simulations. They were records, historical documents from the predecessors themselves. By the first stars, Vextol breathed. They're showing us what happened to them. The images told a story that spanned millions of years. The predecessors had achieved technological advancement beyond anything current species could imagine. They had conquered death, transcended physical form, and gained the power to reshape reality itself. But with that power came a terrible price. They created the Great Wave. Maya realized, watching the historical records. Not intentionally. It was a side effect of their advancement. The more they evolved, the more they damaged the basic fabric of space-time. And now they're testing species to find successors, Chen added. But successors for what? The quantum entities swirled around their ships, their forms resolving into something almost comprehensible, echoes of what the predecessors had once been. Choice remains, the voice stated. Advancement offers power beyond current understanding. Preservation maintains galaxy's stability. Can note AAV both. Vextel's scales shifted to the deep gold of revelation. They're not just testing us. They're warning us, showing us the choice they faced and failed. The Great Wave in the simulation, Zixra added. It's coming. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Unless we choose differently than they did. Chen finished. Commander Vextal, I believe we're making this decision for more than just our own species. The transformed raiders moved closer, their hybrid forms pulsing with their new understanding. Their former captain spoke. We have seen all perspectives now. The path of pure advancement leads to destruction, but pure preservation leads to stagnation. There must be another way. Vextel turned all four eyes to the main viewer, watching the quantum entities dance around their ships. Captain Chen, what if we refuse the choice as presented? The predecessor's mistake wasn't advancing too far. It was advancing without consideration for the whole. Balance, Chen agreed. Not advancement at all costs, not preservation at all costs, but sustainable progress. Progress that brings species together instead of setting them apart. The quantum entities swirled faster, their patterns becoming more complex. The predecessor voice spoke again, but differently this time. Less mechanical, more alive. Unexpected solution PRPOZD. Historical data su GGSTs PVOSTAS IBILITYOVER loquigiti. Species Sheshowu potential for NEWPATHE. The chamber began to transform one final time. The historical records shifted, showing new possibilities. Futures that the predecessors had never considered in their rush to transcend their physical forms. They're giving us their knowledge, Zixra reported excitedly, but not their technology. They're showing us how to advance safely, together, without repeating their mistakes. More than that, said the raider captain, their transformed consciousness gleaming with understanding. They're showing us how to help other species join the journey. This isn't just about humans and Arctians anymore. The quantum entities began to fade, their purpose fulfilled. But before they vanished, the predecessor voice spoke one final time. Trial Tio and CLUDET. New Guardians CHOSN. Preserve. ADVANC. Unite. Survive. As the ancient artifact began to power down, both ships received massive data transfers, not weapons or technological secrets, but maps. Maps showing the locations of other species on the verge of interstellar travel, species that would need guidance to join the galactic community safely. Well, Commander, Chen said with a hint of humor in her voice, still interested in cultural exchange. Indeed, Captain, Vextel replied, his scales shimmering with anticipation. Though I believe our mission has expanded somewhat. The transformed raiders, forever changed by their experience, pledged to help. Their unique perspective would prove invaluable in helping new species understand the importance of cooperation over conflict. As both ships prepared to leave the artifact, they knew this was just the beginning. The predecessors had given them a chance to forge a different path, not one of reckless advancement or fearful preservation, but of balanced progress through unity. The galaxy was about to enter a new age, not an age of human dominance or Arxian guidance, but an age of cooperation. Because if the predecessor's warning was true, the Great Wave was coming, and when it arrived, only a united galaxy would have any hope of survival. But that was a challenge for another day. For now, they had maps to follow, species to contact, and a very different first contact protocol to design. After all, the standard greeting would need some revision when you're introducing new species not just to your own civilization, but to a growing alliance of worlds.